Here's what happened in Florida and why this is a full-on attack on science and public health. So the Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, just announced that the state will eliminate every single childhood vaccine mandate. Yes, so that includes measles, mumps, rubella, polio, hepatitis B, chickenpox, you name it. And standing right next to him is this Governor Ron DeSantis. Dr. Ladapo even compared vaccine mandates to slavery. So this is the level of absurdity that we're dealing with. This decision is not based on science. It's based on politics and fear-mongering. There is overwhelmingly decades-long evidence showing that vaccine mandates keep kids safe, keep communities protected, and prevent dangerous outbreaks. These aren't just suggestions. They're literally eradicated deadly diseases in the past. Removing them, that's how you bring them back. And it's not just Floridians at risk. Florida is a tourist hotspot. If these preventable diseases make a comeback, everyone visiting that state and that live in that state is at risk. Immunocompromised people, babies too young for full vaccinations, elderly folks, pregnant women. It doesn't even stay in Florida at that point. It'll start spreading. So as a nurse, I've taken care of patients fighting for their lives against diseases we know how to prevent. Watching supposed leaders dismantle public health protections like this, it's not just disappointing, it's absolutely disgusting. This is an attack on science. This is reckless, this is dangerous, and we need to say so loudly.
Florida has made an announcement that they're going to end all vaccine mandates, and this would be most concerning in the Florida public school system, because when we talk about risks for outbreaks, we talk about people congregated in relatively small spaces for relatively long periods of time, schools, dorms, barracks, and so this would present significant concerns. Now, we already have all of the vaccine exemptions that you could do, so religious and medical and all that stuff, so already the number of kids coming into kindergarten as vaccinated people has dropped significantly over the last couple of years. Why do we have vaccine mandates in the first place? This is a public health strategy to improve adherence to the vaccine schedule and decrease the amount of disease, outbreaks, preventable deaths in the community. Currently, all states have vaccine requirements, and up until the last couple of years, we weren't having significant outbreaks of these vaccine preventable illnesses. So it was working. By removing the mandates, we will likely continue to see a decline in the uptake of vaccines for kids in schools, and we'll continue to see outbreaks like we did with the measles, where we had 1,431 confirmed cases so far this year. 12% of those required hospitalization, but kids under 5, 21% of them required hospitalization, so over 1 in 5. There have unfortunately been 3 deaths, and 2 of these were in healthy kids. In all of those 1,400 cases, only 4% were fully vaccinated, 92% unvaccinated. Measles is one of the most contagious viruses that we have, but the vaccine is one of the most effective, 93% for 1 dose, 96, 97% for 2 doses. These childhood vaccines have been around for decades, and we have tremendous safety data and efficacy data to prove that they're working. Protecting kids in schools also protects the people that they come home to, including siblings that are too young to be vaccinated, parents, and elderly grandparents that are immunocompromised. Vaccines are an evidence-based way to reduce or completely eliminate infectious diseases from our community, and I call on our politicians to partner with public health agencies to continue these efforts.
Florida did it. They did it first. The Surgeon General in Florida has announced plans to remove vaccine mandates alongside Ron DeSantis and in alignment with the administration secretary for HHS, Robert F. Kennedy. They are the first in the nation to do this. What it also means is that once these mandates go away, it's no longer required for entry into public school. What have they cited? Bodily autonomy. The very words that we hear every day will now be used to remove vaccine mandates. The Surgeon General has cited that there's only a very short list that exists of vaccines for which he would think are necessary, but he is offering up bodily autonomy and parental discretion on what can be administered through pediatricians. Congratulations, Florida. First in the nation.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Who am I as a government, or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. I don't have that right. Government does not have that right. They want you to believe they have that right.
Well, no more mandatory vaccinations for your kids before they go to school. I'm not talking about the flu-pocalypse vaccination here, dear. I'm talking about things like whooping cough and polio and measles and chickenpox. You know, the vaccines that we've had for decades and decades and decades that have kept us safe. Yeah, no more mandatory vaccinations, dear. No more blue cards, as they say, for kids in Florida today. And if you don't know, that's what it's called, your blue card. Now, back when I was a child in school, it was an actual blue card that had your vaccinations on there, dear, that they checked every year at the beginning of school to make sure that you could go there. They didn't want to let chickenpox in because unbeknownst to most people, I guess, in the United States, having chickenpox is not okay. I never was vaccinated for chickenpox back in the day, and no, it didn't take my life. But at any given moment, on any given day, I could go blind. You see, the chickenpox virus stays in your nervous system, baby. And then later in life, it turns into shingles, which maybe you might think is just a rash, dear. But I'm here to tell you, shingles is not just a rash. It's a viral infection in your nervous system. And it can cause serious harm and even death. I'm unlucky, you see, because my shingles is on the left side of my face and my head. So when it starts to spread, it moves up towards my eye. If it moves into my ocular nerve, I am blinded for life. If it moves into the nerves in my ear, I become deaf forever, dear. So chickenpox just isn't a rash. Whooping cough will take your life. Measles will cause encephalitis. Your brain will swell and you will die, baby. And polio? Honey, do we have to go through what polio would do to you? Because it ravished the globe, baby. I don't see any iron lungs around today because we effectively made polio go the fuck away. Not no more. Not no more in the US of A. We've got children fighting for their lives in hospitals because they contracted measles, dear. There are people with polio today. But in Florida, baby, they think it's okay for you to send your sickly ass kids to school to get my children sick today, and then for them to bring it home and make the entirety of my household sick too. But it is the GOP, and they don't care about you or your children, boo. I mean, hell, it was just Daddy Dumpy Pants the other day on TV that had something to say about children in school and their safety, dear. It would just cost too much money to make your kids safe at school, honey. So we're not going to bring you any gun reform or security either. They just think your teacher should have a gun. They also don't seem to think it's safe you should protect your children from predators either. If the predator just so happens to be somebody with money, honey, or in power, a position of power in your city or your state, well, it's just a hoax, is what they'll say. Now, it's your choice. What you decide to do with your children today, whether or not you want to vaccinate them. But what you are not free to do is send your unvaccinated child to a public school to infect my child when it could take her life. See, my children are grown now. I don't have to worry about this anymore. But my daughter had an autoimmune disease. She still has it. She'll have it for the entirety of her life. If she would have went to school and sat next to a kid, unvaccinated, with whooping cough, it would have killed her. With polio, it would have killed her. With the measles, it would have killed her. With chickenpox, it would have killed her. So you can take your crazy, stupid fucking ass and homeschool your kids today if you have a problem with a mandatory vaccination. Or you can just move to Florida, because they don't seem to care about your children over there.
If you are sending a child back to school this fall, and if you live in the state of Florida, you may now need to start worrying about things that we weren't worrying about in this country for a very long time. The Surgeon General of the state of Florida has now said that they are going to work toward eliminating all vaccine mandates in the state for children. So things like measles, mumps, and rubella, polio, influenza, COVID. These are things where there are vaccines readily available, where some of those viruses have been virtually eradicated in this country, are now not going to be mandated anymore in the state of Florida. Now, Florida's Surgeon General has long been a vaccine skeptic, but vaccine skepticism is something that has been growing across the United States, and even at the highest levels of public health in the federal government. I'm talking about RFK Jr. Now, remember when RFK Jr. told senators during his Senate confirmation process that he was not anti-vaccine? Well, since then, he has appointed to a major vaccine board several people who have been skeptical of vaccines or have spread misinformation about vaccines. Already since 2019, there have been rising cases of vaccine rejection among parents of school-aged children. The cases of Americans who are vaccinating their children have gone down. And when that happens, do we lose the potential of having the herd immunity that protects us all? The other question facing us is, what, if anything, is Congress going to do? Now, RFK Jr. was confirmed by a Republican-led Congress, a Republican-led Senate. And two of those senators are now making some indications that they might be regretting their vote. One of them is Senator Lisa Murkowski, who says that she's very concerned about what has been coming out of the Health and Human Services Department and CDC. The other is Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a doctor, and he's been on X battling it out with another Senate Republican who is a doctor, Rand Paul, about a childhood vaccine, the hepatitis B vaccine. Bill Cassidy has been defending that vaccine from people who say that it should not be administered to babies anymore. But when he was asked by reporters about whether he regretted his vote for RFK Jr., he wouldn't say directly yes or no. The problem is, it may be too late. We are going to talk about all of this at the table tonight. We have a doctor who's going to sort out some of this misinformation around vaccines. And it's also worth asking the question, do Americans really want this? Some of them did, but many of them did not. I'll see you at 10.
So Florida is the first state to do away with vaccine mandates, even for schools. If this was specifically targeted towards like their base, I could get behind that. You know, those folks, the seniors, the white seniors just rotting, bitch. And they still voting for shitheads like DeSantis and Trump. Like, you don't need no damn vaccine. But my God, they're targeting children too. Children, kids. Oh my God. Like, y'all don't understand. Vaccines, right? Vaccinations are the reason why we've been able to live as long as we can in this day and age, right? We have made so many advancements within like the past, 70 years? vaccines are the reason why folks get to live as long as they do these days. And they're actively trying to, these folks, like, and it doesn't make any sense to me because y'all are actively targeting children. Isn't this like, they supposed to be pro-life, and you know, white supremacists, right? They want for more white women to have babies with these abortion bans so that they can still be the majority in like 30 years, right? But it's just like, how the fuck do you expect that to happen if you're actively targeting children with these vaccination mandates? They're gonna, like, from preventable shit, catching shit at school, like, my God, are y'all okay? These folks are so stupid. Like, they're not smart. They can't even be evil correctly. That don't make no damn sense.
Hey, just a quick question for all the conservatives who are cheering about the rollback on vaccine mandates in Florida. What the Surgeon General said is that, you know, who am I as a government to tell you what you should be doing with your own body? I'm just wondering if you will be dropping all of the restrictions on women's access to health care. Because if we're not mandating vaccines in Florida, then surely we're not going to be mandating what women can do with their bodies as well. Because that's what he said, that is between your body and your God. So I'm just curious as to when we will see that you guys have access to women's reproductive health care again. Because I see a lot of conservatives so excited about the fact that they don't have to get a vaccine for measles or mumps or other communicable diseases. I am so glad that you guys will be subjected to the horror of the diseases that we thought we had eradicated. But I'm just wondering when we will see the push for women's reproductive health care again. Thanks.
Florida is now working hard to make the state a safer place by making it a breeding ground for diseases that have long been under control, with Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo announcing today that the state was moving to ban all vaccine mandates. It's not just COVID, all of them. And all of this would be a pretty dramatic departure from current Florida law, which mandates vaccines in children in order for them to go to public schools. So to be clear, the state would just be banning mandates and not the vaccines themselves. So still with that, you had health experts warning this will be dangerous, noting that vaccines help populations reach herd immunity, which doesn't mean 100% of the population is safe. Instead, it covers over 90% of the population, giving wiggle room for the handful of people who can't get a vaccine for one reason or another. And then below that threshold, various diseases can still spread despite chunks of the population being immune, putting those who want to be protected but can't because of one reason or another, such as an allergy to a vaccine, being in danger. Which is why you have many experts saying we should expect to see a huge uptick of communicable and otherwise preventable diseases. We're talking about even maybe polio or measles. And all of this is, I think, why we're seeing states like California, Oregon, and Washington working on unified vaccine recommendations to try and mitigate the spread of such diseases on the West Coast.
Breaking news here out of Florida. Florida leaders just announced plans to end all vaccine mandates, including the ones that keep our kids safe in schools from measles, polio, and chickenpox. As a healthcare professional, I've seen firsthand what happens when preventable diseases spread. It puts children, seniors, and first responders in danger. Ending these protections doesn't make us freers, it makes us more vulnerable. I'm Bernard Taylor, and I'm running for Congress because at the end of the day, we need leaders who put public health before politics. Together, so we can keep Florida families safe and healthy.
So I have an interesting topic, you guys. Right now, today, Florida is trying to completely ban all childhood vaccines from children K through 12. They have indicated that it is borderline slavery for putting these drugs into children. And these children have a choice of what goes inside their body. At the same time, you guys, when it comes down to gender affirming care, that topic disappears completely. So I honestly want your opinion right over this way. When it comes down to vaccines, they claim the child has a choice of what they want in their body. But when it comes down to gender affirming care, the child no longer has a choice. Kind of weird. Let me know your thoughts in the comments over this way. Thanks.